Thanks for coming back. Here it is, part 2. Losing your arm at sea. Working as a real pirate booty hunter. And what's more scary, surfing big waves at Mavericks or being an entrepreneur? Well, how long has it been now?
Since the
start of the company.
We started in 2011, September 2011.
Wow.
Yeah, and it took several years of engineering.
So it's been 6 years.
Several years of vetting, several years of treading water, raising money to stay and I've been flying under the radar because these big companies, we're exposed now. My skirt's up around my ears. And it's just like, they could smash us with a flick of the wrist, but I'm hoping we get in fast enough and we can scale in a meaningful manner now, so that they won't be able to ignore us, and we'll be acquired by someone that needs to transition to our technology because it can't be ignored. Forget the environmental part. We're sneaking the environmentalism in on them. Why would I what?
Well, why would you want to sell a company?
I don't know I don't know. There's a
king?
Potential exit strategy there. If they were benevolent and it's Tyco International who sells, they're our biggest competitor, and they're all over the world, and they're saying, yeah, we're going to scale your technology in 2 years to every firefighter in the world. That's a victory for me. Forget the money and the acquisition. We're putting the tool in their hands. And so an entrenched player like that could help us do it faster than we could, unless I go out and raise $100 million myself and hire a whole group of executives, which we could do that as well. But I think the fastest way to succeeding and facilitating this technology, the entire industry, is through a strategic partnership. And I don't know if we have to sell, but we need a partner potentially. I know you're the business guy, but so
look, I don't know this industry, but my suspicion, Jeff, is, well, let me take a step back. In the world that I know, that's not what happens. So, for example, I'll give you a recent category battle I was in over a decade ago now. No, I guess a little less than a decade ago. I was involved with a company that was in the what at the time we called social business space. So Facebook and LinkedIn were on fire, and we were the quote unquote Facebook for business. And everybody said that was going to be kind of the next big category. And as the category started to take off, there were 3 main players. One of them fucked up on execution. One of them sold to Microsoft for over $1 billion. And then the one I was involved with just kind of fucked up, just didn't execute. Mm-hmm. So you would have thought that Microsoft had bought one of the company was called Yammer, that they were now going to take this forward and they were going to be the leader in social business. That didn't happen. For all practical purposes, Yammer died, and the category just sat there nascent with nobody. Sort of the way music is a nascent category in the consumer space, right? As a consumer, I don't know what the fuck I'm supposed to do with my digital music today, right? There's no category king. It's a complete
shitty quality too.
Well, yeah,
there was a sad fact is in 1984, in the back seat of my Chevy Nova, I was listening to better quality music than this compressed bullshit we have now.
I love that you have
MP3 files. They suck.
I know they don't sound real, right?
They've stolen the joy of listening to good music.
Yeah.
I mean, the analog, I have a tube, all tube system at my house, and a DA converter, and I try to get back to, but when you're cruising in the car and you're streaming Pandora, I tell people you're hearing like a quarter of the music. And music's this visceral, physical, emotional experience. Like you're taking away, it's like wearing 9 condoms, right?
And wearing one sucks. Wearing 9 would really, really be bad.
Right.
So anyway, my point is, you would have thought Microsoft would have become the category king, but a lot of these big companies don't actually, even though they have good intentions, they can't prosecute the magic triangle in a new category. And so the world that I know that says, and it may be different in your world, so caveat. But in the world that I know, if you want to deliver against a giant vision for a profound change that you're committed to, you got to deliver that vision, right? The founders of Cisco made the internet happen. Larry Ellison, the founder of Oracle, right? he created a whole new category of database that opened up computing to a whole new set of capabilities that put a whole set of dominoes in effect that made Oracle what it is today, and on and on. And so I guess my point is, when the founder, the company that is the originator of the category, the product, and the company, when those people exit, often the ability to execute on the what we would call category potential, what you might call your dream or your vision, diminishes. Now, again, that might not be true in this case, but in the tech space, it's often true. Not always, but often.
Right.
Mergers kill companies.
Right. Interesting. Duly noted. I guess if you'd asked me 6 years ago, would we be where we are now with the business? I said it would have been a real long shot. So I guess you're asking me now, am I capable of building this company into a several $100 million or $1 billion a year company? I guess maybe. I'm looking at the strategic partnership as a means to an end, because maybe I don't have enough belief in myself. But it'd be who we surround. We make the money. We get in the business. We're turning dollars over. I can hire guys that are experts at facilitating chemical companies. Right. That's what I need to do. I need to attract talent, and that's the next step.
And, Jeff, you have a track record of attracting insane talent.
Yeah.
And I was just in a meeting yesterday with a couple of entrepreneurs, guys I really, really like, and they're just buddies of mine. We have no sort of economic relationship. These guys have built their company on blood, sweat, and tears, and now have an amazing opportunity right in front of them. And when I met with them, what I told them was this new idea they had was way bigger than they realized. And I said they had a bet the company kind of opportunity that would yield a multi-billion-dollar market cap company if they got the category and they executed a category king strategy. And so I guess with all that said, you seem to me like a guy who's banged on this thing for 6 fucking years.
Yeah, it's been the hardest thing I've ever done. Yeah.
Does it feel like you're on the edge of really breaking through? Do you feel a tipping point coming?
I do. Yes, in the firefighting industry, for sure. In the agency vertical, which is a smaller piece. And then the key to the industrial vertical is the insurance companies. So if I can facilitate a relationship with the insurance company to get behind us and make our technology part of risk mitigation for their clients. So these AIG insurers, Gulf Oil, right? They spend or Exxon spends $20 million a year in insurance, right, or more. And now all of a sudden, AIG is saying to them, you need to buy this product to mitigate fire because it's going to do so, and it's going to save us a lot of money. So there's a big play. And if I can facilitate those relationships and make that happen, we've got a really good chance of succeeding. And in the fire agency side, if I can raise enough money now to deliver and transition the biggest agencies in the industry immediately to the use, and once they get on it, they're never going to switch off it, then we'll beat the competition. So I'm at that stage right now. We need to execute on those steps. So talk to me in October. I'll let you know how it goes. And I'm trying to raise the money to make it happen too. And so, the insurance companies are certainly looking at investing, and I've been extending my Rolodex as much as I can to reach new private equity people. As much as I can. It's all about telling your story and being passionate about it and having your ducks lined up and articulating the opportunity and your vision and execution strategy. And I've been doing that a while to keep this thing going. So
where does your tenacity come from, Jeff?
First of all, I don't know. To me, I'm just me. So are you, I guess people see me as tenacious. They see this one-armed guy surfing. He's tenacious.
No, you're not.
I don't know. It's
Jeff,
just part of me.
Jeff, you're not a one-armed guy surfing. You're a one-armed guy charging, Jaws and Mavericks and, some of the hidden spots and you're out there doing it with, I know you're not a big name dropper, but I mean, the biggest names in big wave surfing.
Yeah. Yes.
Those are your bros.
Yep. Yeah, I guess I don't know where it comes from. It's just there. When I'm presented with extreme challenges, it gets my attention, right? Which is hard to do because I have such a short attention span. So I guess I'm only wired to do quote unquote hard things, right? Because if they're hard, then I pay attention enough to actually do them. Whereas if it's mundane or just this, small talk, I'm horrible at parties, and where all this small talk is happening, the Peanuts, Charlie Brown, I hear womp, 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 all night long. And then somebody starts talking about something radical, and it could be like 5 people away, and my ears, all of a sudden I hear that, and I'm like over there. And it could be the biggest asshole in the room, but he's a challenge, and so that's why I'm there. I don't know. So maybe the tenacity has a lot to do with my ADD, that I'm really only drawn to things that are hard to do.
But I mean, there's a lot.
So you have to be tenacious to do them.
There are people who suffer something much less than having their arm torn off on a boat in the middle of the fucking
Bering Sea,
freezing cold Bering Sea, who just die out there.
Yeah, I could have died there.
So why do you think you didn't die out there?
Interestingly enough, I was bleeding out, and I was having visions of my mother looking down in a grave at me, and it wasn't an acceptable vision. Honestly, that's the truth. I was having visions when I closed my eyes, and then when you're on morphine and you're bleeding out and you're in extreme pain, and I didn't get off the boat for 21 hours. They had to steam out of a storm and to the lee of this island and extract me and get me onto a helicopter to a Learjet to the hospital. We had to refuel, and so it was a long.
Where was the hospital?
We went to Sitka first, and then we went to Seattle. They stabilized me in Sitka, and then flew me to Seattle. Where's Sitka? It's in Southeast Alaska. It's out by Kodiak, and it's one of the island, part of the island chain in Southeast Alaska, so just north of British Columbia, and then flew me to Seattle, where they had neurosurgeons and hand specialists and trauma docs get after me. And they told me that they were blown away that I was even alive, that I made it that far.
Had you had a blood transfusion before you got there?
No, plasma though. I was on plasma. I was hooked up, and I had some morphine to keep the pain down, which was pretty, tense. It mangled my arm, broke my neck.
So what exactly happened?
I fell. I was in the engine room servicing a piece of equipment, and next to a high-speed drive shaft in very heavy seas, and I slipped, fell into a PTO, power takeoff, which is where drive shafts change. It's the knuckle where they change, or they're either attached to a machine or where they change direction. High speed, metal, moving fast, and I fell into it, and my arm got wrapped around it like a rope, and it sucked me in. It I was literally, it ripped my arm out of shoulder, and it was grinding me, and I was in my mind going, please, I was envisioning the shoulder, just please let it come off. I wanted it to go. And then someone heard the machine struggling, and chief engineer, and shut the machine off, and my shoulder was out of joint, and clavicle was broken. It was mangled. My whole right side of my body was mangled, and I was bleeding. We had to tourniquet my shoulder and my brachial artery right there.
But it's a tough place to tourniquet, right? Yeah. Because it's not like if your wrist comes off.
Plus, I was still stuck in the shaft. They had to take the shaft apart. It took them 2 hours to get me out of the shaft, and then drag me up to the wheelhouse and put me in a gurney.
So they're trying to stop the bleeding and take apart the shaft at the same time.
Yeah, we did it. We pulled it off.
Are you just in shock? Is that what's going on?
I remember it clearly. I think I stayed out of shock, which kept me alive. I was very much in the moment the whole time until about, like 6 or 7 hours after it happened. I was just so exhausted. I kept passing out.
How are you processing the pain?
I've learned I've never taken painkillers. They gave me the morphine immediately subsequent to the injury. And in the hospital, I was off painkillers for the first 24 hours. So I just sweat through bed sheets. I feel like painkillers weaken the body, weaken the immune system, weaken the mind, dull your ability to focus on getting through to compartmentalizing and getting through to methodically, systematically work your way through the problem. So if you're all drugged up, you're not working your way, your acuity levels are lower, and I felt less in control on narcotics than I would be on pain. And so I used the pain to help me channel, to focus ways to deal with the pain. And I learned to compartmentalize, like I can just block it right out, you know?
So it sits and spins over here.
Yeah.
But what about in that moment when your fucking body is tangled up in this machine?
Yeah, it hurt. A lot of F-bombs.
Yeah. Did they get you some Jack Daniels or some Macallan or something?
Morphine. Shot of morphine.
Yeah.
And I got seasick for the first time in my life, which I was all embarrassed about. I was apologizing and throwing
with
up.
Your arm tangled in this thing.
Throwing up, and like it was, you know, it's a badge of honor not to get seasick in Alaska. You can't work on an Alaskan fishing boat and get seasick. And so here I am making excuses for being seasick while I'm bleeding out. I'm sorry.
And how long is the road back to, you know, being able to dive again or being able to surf
I went
again?
back home to Maine, and I had a couple plastic surgeries to prepare me for the use of a prosthesis. And I got back in the pool, and I tell this story, it's funny, at a local club, and I still had all the staples in my arm. And when I was swimming, and they were stretching the skin, and I had a bag over it, was leaking anywhere and getting chlorinated water into this wound. And I basically got to the end of the pool, and I started pulling the staples out of my arm and putting them onto the side of the pool. And it was just like pink and looked like it was ready to just pop open. And I stopped because I had this sense someone was watching me, and I looked over in the next lane. There's this old lady who was swimming with her goggles up, and her mouth was hanging open, and she was looking at me like I was a creature from a horror movie as I'm ripping staples out of her. And I looked at her, I said, "How you doing?" And I just went back to pulling staples out. So, and I just started rebuilding from there, and immediately focused on trying to surf again, immediately focused on trying to mountain bike again, and stuff my arm. I used to mountain bike in a prosthesis, duct tape to the bike, and the pain was so bad I'd throw up during the rides. And I just was worth it though. I mean, I just want to get these selfish pursuits back in check. Mountain biking, and skiing,
I don't know
surfing.
That they're selfish. See, I don't know. I think they're just who you are.
Well, they're a bigger part. They're certainly more important now because surfing got me the job with Patagonia, which inspired me to do something with my life and try to create an environmental product to make the world a better place. So surfing now has a lot of relevance in my life. Whereas beforehand, and this is a lesson to the whole surfing community, most of which fucking drive me nuts because all I do is whine and bitch and moan. Oh, it's too crowded. Oh, I can't do this. I can't do the water's too cold. Oh, this, I got a rash guard. You're fucking sitting at 11 o'clock in the morning on a weekday surfing. And there are people are in Aleppo getting bombed. And there are people that have 3 kids that are driving over 17 every day to go to work because they have no fucking choice. And you're bitching and whining because of this or that. And they're so fucking clueless. And it's one of the most self-serving, selfish, self-centered, individualistic sports, you know, and all this bullshit. And so now, like, it's so much bigger than it would have ever been for me because of what it's enabled through my association with Patagonia to do what I'm doing with ATIRA. And I mean it. That's reality. You know, it's way bigger than it ever would have been because to me, surfing's just, it's like now that I've lost an arm, I've been around, I've traveled, I worked as an archaeological diver for years, and I've been to all over the world, lived in Madagascar, lived in these places where these people are dying and suffering and sick and poor. And it gives you perspective, you know, and the shit that we Americans have to put up with, it's like first world problems, right? That's a real thing. And it's like, grow up. And so now I feel like surfing is really important because it's leveraged me to where I can be now with ATIRA, which is one little environmental problem we're trying to solve. And yeah, we want to make money, and yeah, it's a technology that's meaningful and relevant. It's going to change the industry, and we're helping first responders, and there's a lot of money to be made. But you know, the core of it for me is making something better, solving a problem, right? And an environmental problem.
It's unbelievable. Now, I got to ask you, you know, what's it like to surf with, you know, you tell me the name, Kelly Slater or...
I don't know. I've only surfed with Kelly a couple times at Pipeline, and I don't, Kelly and
What
I aren't
about like
buddies.
a Sean Dollar?
Dollar's a good friend of mine, and it's an honor because he's super humble and super committed, and he understands how surfing's really not that big a deal, and his kids are his biggest deal, and his job and his wife. He understands that. He's one of the few guys that really gets it. That doesn't think that they're king shit because they're a surfer.
Does he still hold the world record for surfing the biggest
so.
wave?
I think so. Yeah, deservedly so. The guy's unbelievable, and he's extremely focused and humble. I love him. And
how's he recovering
like
from
that,
his accident?
Ben Wilkinson, I happen to work with him, and Cole Christensen. These guys that have been surfing their whole lives. I'm from Maine, and they've been surfing big waves their whole lives, and they've sort of taken me under their wing, and I've learned a lot in an aquatic sense from them. I've certainly had my own desire, and I think I inspire them in my own ways. And so there's this symbiosis going on. And just to be part of the Patagonia team, when you look at our team, it's like Rostovich, Cole Christensen, the Malloy brothers. I mean, I'm in pretty.
What's it like to paddle out with the Malloy brothers?
Jerry Lopez,
Jerry
Wayne
Lopez.
Lynch. Wayne Lynch was my all-time surfing hero. I used to read his stories about this south coast of Australia. Again, like, everybody wants to go to Hawaii. I wanted to go to Ireland. I wanted to go to Victoria. Cold, sharky, lonely water. Why? Because I can't stand surfing with people, and I want big waves. And I like the idea of great whites swimming around because it adds this element of excitement and all that. And so I went to South Australia, on a soul searching mission to follow and I've read an article Wayne Lynch wrote to go down there and follow the path. This is before I got signed by Patagonia, and that's where I first surfed big waves. I met these guys in Port Campbell, South Australia, which is in west of Torquay on the Otway Peninsula. And I waltzed into town one day, and there was a guy that was sitting on the cliff watching me try to paddle out at this huge beach break. It was like only triple overhead, but big at the time for me. And when I got into town, he's like, "Hey, mate, was that you on the Mal at Gibbo's?" I'm like, "What?" He's like, "Was that you on the Mal?" I was on a longboard at Gibson Steps. I said, "Yeah, I guess that was me." He goes, so I go over. He owns the shop. Every board in the shop's like a 9-foot gun. So I'm like, holy shit, these guys are legit. And we end up hitting it off, and a huge swell hits 3 days later, and they take me out tow surfing. I grew up water skiing, so I could pull behind anything. And grew up water skiing a lot. And so I didn't tell them that. So I got rayed up. I'd never tow surfed. And then I found myself being dragged into 40-foot waves at Easter Reef. And I was hooked right there.
And that was your first big,
real big waves. Yeah. Other than 15-foot faces.
And so what's it like the first time you take off on a 40-footer?
Well, all I had to do was let go of the rope, and I ate shit and went over the falls and got pounded, and that was awesome. And I was more worried about letting these guys down, who were these like Australian guys. Like I was more worried about letting them down than I was about the waves. I was like, these guys are taking me on their wing, and I don't even know them, and they're like taking me out here on this ski, and I got to get my shit together. Phil Daffy was one of these guys. He's this underground legend that's friends with Wayne Lynch and friends with Tony Ray and Ross Clark Jones, and all those guys kind of cut their teeth on that.
How funny is Ross Clark Jones?
He's a classic.
Is he as funny in person?
Humble, sweet, tough guy. He would have been a good hockey player.
Yeah. He looks kind of like a hockey player.
Yeah, he's a surfer. He's a gnarly guy.
Do you have a favorite wave?
Lapras. I really like that. It's a south swell spot in Maui that gets really big, gnarly left-hander. I like my little old Rye Rocks.
Do you surf goofy?
I surf goofy. I'm naturally goofy foot, but I go switch foot too on rights because it's hard to get up with my right arm missing. It's hard to stuff my right leg 34-inch inseam underneath a little paddle arm going backside. So I learned how to take off switch foot on rights.
So you surf righty on rights and lefty on lefts.
Yeah, I'm always front side.
And will you surf a 40-foot wave on
Switch
your right
foot.
Side switch foot?
Switch foot. Yeah.
You will.
Yeah.
And do you feel as comfortable and as competent?
Yeah, now I've trained myself to competency. I've never been a high performance surfer. I'm not like, aerials or anything like that, but I can stick it and bottom turn and trim and generate speed on either foot.
And make sections
on either foot. Yeah.
Wow. I'd be fascinated to understand the neurology around what it takes to rewire yourself to
You know
be
what it takes
ambidextrous.
is doing it on your floor in your house. And also, I have this thing, Brett Lickle, one of the pioneers of JAWS, who was the first toe revolution, built this thing called a surf ball. And it's a basketball. It's not like an Indo board. Indo board, I can do a one-handed handstand on an Indo board. They're like, there's no challenge in that.
You wait a minute, you big sexy man. You can do a one-handed.
Yeah, so my buddy will hold me up and I can balance on one hand on that damn thing. So the point is this
fucking
the surf ball.
I remember watching you once at the gym, and I thought, there is not a chance I could do that guy's warm-up.
Yeah, we're at Rockies.
Yeah. I mean,
So
you are an incredible athlete.
The surf ball is this basketball with basically a board that you put on the basketball and you balance. And Rocky, my trainer, used to have me stand on that, and he'd flip playing cards at me, and I'd have a weight vest on. So I'm balancing on a basketball on a board on a concrete floor, catching baseball cards. And so then that develops your core strength and your balance. And with one arm, I've had to work real hard to get the balance back because, believe it or not, there's all this peripheral stuff going on. There's subtle motions.
And so all of your body development is all off, right? You're all asymmetrical and fucked up, right?
I fight it with yoga and stretching. Big part of my cross training is that keeping my skeleton straight. Yeah, you're absolutely right. It takes
your posture makes me feel like a piece of shit.
Well, no, I mean, really it takes a lot of work I've got, with the left side of my body so strong, it's always pulling my spine out of alignment, and I have to fight every day to bring it back. And so, especially paddleboarding, I'm a long distance paddleboarder, prone paddleboarder, and the amount of, I'm just developing the left side of my body so much. Even though I have a paddle blade on the right side, it doesn't nearly generate, a lot of the muscles are damaged on the right side, and it doesn't generate the same torque, so I don't have the same muscle.
Every once in a while you'll hear some idiot say, oh, well, people like you have some kind of fucking advantage because you have this prosthetic fucking awesome fucking blade of a paddle or whatever the fuck, and so you're able to, isn't it awesome to be Jeff? Not so much, huh?
One guy said that. Only one guy at a race. So that must make you faster. And I didn't have to say anything because my buddy standing next to me straightened him out, and I just walked away. I mean, I guess I could have broken his arm and then challenged him to a race, but I didn't. I'm a nice guy.
Now, you were a righty, weren't you?
I was a righty.
So you had to learn to be a lefty.
It's not about, I was never going to be it's about having two arms, and the left being an assister to the right. When you lose it, it's not about learning to write. Computers, I can tap. I wasn't getting paid to write, and I'm not smart enough to be a writer and articulate. So it was more about having two arms and being a commercial diver and doing sports that required two arms and these gross motor movements that were compromised by having one arm. That was the problem. It was less. People always say, "Oh, you had to learn to write with your left hand." I'm like, I didn't get paid to write. I got paid to dive and work on boats. And that requires two arms. Writing requires one. So if all I had to do was face learning how to write again with my left hand, it would have been easy. But that wasn't a big deal.
That's awesome.
Right.
So how long after the accident were you back working on the boats?
I never went back to work on boats in a commercial sense as a merchant marine. They won't hire me, but I got hired by
I thought you were diving again.
I did. I got hired by Barry Clifford, one of the most prolific undersea explorers. And I set about to travel around the world with him and dig up pirate ships. Literally, if you look up Barry Clifford, we found Captain Kidd's ship in Madagascar, looking for the Santa Maria in Haiti, dove on the Witta pirate. The first authenticated pirate ship ever found was found off Cape Cod. It was Black Sam Bellamy's ship, the Witta, which sunk in 1717 in one of the biggest recorded weather events on the eastern seaboard. Ship went down with all his treasure. He found it, authenticated it, made a career for himself, and I got hired by him and started diving for him and travel over the world digging up pirate ships. So I wasn't necessarily working as a merchant marine. I was just working as a diver.
Well, this sounds like
one
way
of Barry
cooler.
Clifford's little bitches is what I was.
Well, that sounds way cooler than being in the Bering Strait having your arm torn off.
It was the best job I ever had.
So tell me about what it was like being a pirate looking for pirates.
I think that's why he hired me. It was awesome. I mean, like I said, we found Captain Kidd ship in Madagascar in 1999.
You were on that mission?
Yeah. And I lived there for off and on for a couple of years.
So what led you to the spot?
They're historians. They had a back end group of PhDs that researched stuff like that. And all we did was go out and facilitate.
They look at old newspaper stories, old logs.
I don't know. I don't have a PhD in undersea, archaeology. I have no idea what they fucking do. But if they thought they found something, we'd go look for it.
And so what's it like when you go out and you're looking for, or tell me what happened. How did you find the boat?
Their historians did. This guy, Kenneth Kincor, PhD, he's now dead, had a heart attack, great guy, was the brain trust behind that organization for a long time. And they had been researching it as many other wrecks. I'm sure Barry's, he won't talk about it, but there's all kinds of ships that he's interested in, and he's networking with people who have knowledge on the history and may be able to help him pinpoint them. And they had enough intel that suggested that this ship was there. And so we went and started looking for it, and we found it.
How many days once you got to the general spot?
A couple of years. We were there over a 2-year period. Yeah.
Non-stop, or you were going there and back and
back
and forth.
Yeah, the company's based in Cape Cod.
Yeah. And then, so what's it like that day you find Kidd's boat?
Well, it was a matter of finding certain artifacts that were tied to the wreck, which was an evolutionary. Probably wasn't this one aha moment, but it was just rad just to be there. And I pulled up a pewter cup with his Captain Kidd's initials on it, and I found a whole crate of Ming Dynasty china that was on the boat, and we pulled up coins that were like currency that was used during the slave trade era. It was a trading route between Madagascar and Africa for the Dutch East Indies trading route. And so Captain Kidd was over there sacking those ships, taking them down.
What year was he doing that, Captain Kidd?
1698, late 1600s, early 1700s.
And so when you hold that cup.
Yeah, we drank out of it that night. We cleaned it all out and poured rum in it and drank out of it.
Yeah, you did.
Nuts.
Drinking rum out of Captain Kidd's fucking goblet.
Yeah. Discovery Channel did a movie on us called The Quest for Captain Kidd. And in 1999, I think it was the most watched show on Discovery Channel.
Is it still out there? Is it on Netflix?
Maybe. I don't know. I haven't looked for it.
It's called The Quest for Captain Kidd?
Yep. And there's a book, too. Barry Clifford wrote with a guy named Paul Perry, a writer that focuses on that type of stuff.
So how many years of your life were you pirating the pirates?
8 years off and on, yeah.
As a pirate.
Yeah, I had a lot of time off, too. It was contract work, and I'd go surf and adventure in between work. And, we were in the Indian Ocean there in Madagascar, so I'd go off and surf, went to Mauritius, which I'd always want to go. That's another favorite wave is Tamarin Bay, that left the secret island of Santosha. Isn't
that supposed to be one of the scariest waves?
It's fun.
Yeah?
No, I guess the scariest would be Teahupoo, right?
Yeah, you think Teahupoo's the scariest wave in the world?
Yeah, for me, yeah.
Yeah.
And I think it requires, black belt level to surf it.
You've surfed Cloud Break in Fiji?
Yeah.
So situate Teahupoo for me versus Cloud Break, because I've seen big Cloud Break.
It's just more abrupt and a steeper takeoff, more critical takeoff, shallower water, at least in the takeoff spot. And it breaks differently, comes out of deep water and heaves and hurls.
Jacks
they all have their different faces, but Teahupoo, I've only been there once, and it's just an extremely challenging drop. And the consequences of blowing it on a medium-sized day or any size day are great. I mean, you get worked on the reef. I mean, there's so many skis now and everybody's on it and they're really watching you, but it requires skills that are really high just to pull off making that drop.
And would you still surf it today?
I don't know. I have nothing to prove. So I don't know. I think these injuries have slowed me down, and working on ATIRA has slowed me down the last few years. And so I'm 50 years old and I'm just as hungry to go surf. I want to go surf Jaws again. That was epic. I'm hoping to get some good swells there, maybe this coming winter if I have the time. And there are other waves out there in the world. I'm not going to say where that I kind of want to go surf. There's those mystery spot X. Australia is a big spot for that.
Yeah.
South and southern New Zealand. My buddy Cole's been like, you talk about a prolific explorer. He's Cole Christensen. He Patagonia Ambassador, grew up on Oahu, surfing outer reefs when he was 16 years old. Just a really talented big wave guy. Also an environmental guy. He runs a solar business. And great human being. But he goes far in afield to find like Japan, these islands off of Japan. He went to like Easter Island when he was a kid and was surfing giant waves off of Easter Island, Rapa Nui. So he's one of those guys that's willing to go really far afield to find that unique experience and pioneering surfing experiences, which are harder and harder to find these days.
Yeah. Have you ever been on a mission with Martin Daly?
No, I never did. No, I never did.
You've never been diving or surfing in the Marshalls?
Not in the Marshalls, no. But my buddies have. A lot of them have been there.
Yeah.
But I met him, and I was in Indonesia when he was running his charters, and I was on a different boat, and I went to G-Land and did the Bali thing, and he was hanging around down there. We met him, and he was actually, his boat broke down. He was in Portsmouth, New Hampshire, back where I grew up, and the boat was there for 3 months, and he was hanging out. I chatted him a little bit, but I've never went on the Indies Trader.
Oh, well, you'd love him. He's your kind of guy.
Yeah, I've heard.
Yeah, and I got to ask you: do you think it's fair to say that Jeremy Jones is the greatest backcountry athlete in the world?
He's one of my very close friends, and I am. He's so committed and so hard fucking core. I mean, look. Those last 3 movies he did, he climbed these peaks, which is nothing new.
Those are the greatest.
He's extremely humble. So like Tom Burt was a snowboarder from the 80s and the early 90s that was doing gnarly, legendary shit on a snowboard, on older gear, climbing the mountains. Like Jeremy hires Tom to keep him alive in the backcountry, right? So there's all these guys behind the scenes, and Jeremy's extremely humble, and he'd be the first to tell you that. But but the reality is, maybe Xavier De La Rue, there's a couple guys that are close, but they've all, you see these movies, they all climb these peaks with him in those flicks and they back down. Like Ryland Bell and Patagonia Ambassador, that kid's fucking gnarly. And he's an Alaskan. And he just climbed up these peaks with Jeremy, and Jeremy will ride the line, and these other guys are backing down. So that's how he's been able to slowly acquire a skill set to the point where he is now, that he has the confidence to take on the shit that he does. And I selfishly, because I love JJ, he's older, and what has he got to prove? So I'm like this outside voice saying, man, what are you fucking doing? Why do you need,
how old is he now?
Do you need to go like 38, maybe 30, 38? So why do you need to, where are you going to go with this? You got 2 great kids, amazing wife, Tiffany, Mia and Cass, his kids. He's got his house. He's made it. He's got a successful brand. He's an incredible businessman. He's got Protect Our Winners. He's doing this environmental work. And again, he's humble. If the athlete's humility does not exceed their ability, then I don't have time for him. And he's one of those guys where his humility exceeds his ability. And because of that, he's so relevant. And he's such an inspirational character to be around. And he's inspiring people in the industry in the right way. And he's fucking gnarly.
Well, I'll never forget, the first movie was Deeper in that series. Is that right?
Deeper, Further, Higher. Yeah.
Higher, yeah. When Deeper first came out, I got it immediately. And I'll never forget sitting there in my living room watching those guys climb those terrifying looking mountain spines at these incredible Alaskan peaks, and just thinking, never forget snowboarding or skiing these lines. Like, how do you even climb these lines?
Yeah, well, I mean, Jeremy will be the first to tell you, they're American rock stars filming their thing. It's the year 2000, whatever. Look, there have been European mountaineers, ski mountaineers, climbing, hanging their balls out, dying left and right, climbing just as gnarly, if not gnarlier stuff, on their own, all alone, with no cameras and no books and no stories and no photos, just doing it because they love it. And they're just as gnarly, if not way gnarlier. But they just, these guys,
just nobody knew.
They told the story. They're really good at telling the story. And what's he done with that story? He's launched his brand to the point where he's got Protect Our Winners now. And it's something so much more meaningful than snowboarding. He's been able to take his celebrity as a snowboarder and implement and execute on this environmental group, which, like, it's way bigger than what snowboarding is. It's way more important, and so that's what he's done and doing. And he's a big inspiration to me, man.
Do you have other extreme athlete, also entrepreneur friends? Is this a pattern that we're seeing here? Or are you guys outliers?
I think we're outliers. I think we're outliers. A lot of them, I think all the Patagonia athletes, first of all, they get the job. Like Rostovich, obviously, the kid's extremely articulate. He's one of the most gifted surfers in the world ever, period, in my opinion. And he's been doing environmental work it's just part of who he is for a long time. So obviously he fits the Patagonia bill. And the same with the Malloy brothers, very down to earth, humble guys, work the land. They work on a ranch. They're become experts at making movies, and they focus those skill sets on bringing environmentalism to the mainstream through surfing. And so I think through Patagonia, obviously I'm cast into that group of characters. And like I said, the humility is makes him, like, Jeremy's so much greater to me than anybody else because of that characteristic,
The humility.
Yeah, he's extremely focused and methodical too. He's not taking any shortcuts. He trains, and he hangs out with these guys, the Morrison brothers, who are no one knows who they are, from Tahoe, and Jeremy tell you they're gnarlier than he is, and they're nobodies because they don't pursue. They're construction guys, and they're fucking animals, skiers, climbers, mountaineers, kiters, everything. They're fucking animals, and nobody's heard of the Morrison brothers, except for you're from Tahoe, and they're like, oh yeah. And like, who's Jeremy trained with? The Morrison brothers. Why? Because they're gnarlier than him.
That's so awesome.
And there's a lot of guys like that. There's a lot of, I think in the big wave world too, there's all these they're becoming more and more prevalent. There's a lot of focus on it, but there's, one of my favorite surfers locally here, and he's certainly part of the surfing culture, but I like him because he'll do anything on a surfboard, but he's so abstract, and that he has no surfing ego, is Tajnik. And I think he's one of the most gifted surfers in the world. And he's also willing to experiment.
And he's a former Mavericks winner, champion.
Yeah. And he's experimenter. He'll do anything. And he's
funny as shit.
He's funny.
He came over here with his girlfriend one time for dinner, and I was peeing myself.
Yeah. He's hilarious. Yeah. He told me one time, he goes, Jeff, Bandit. They all call me the Bandit, which I'm not, it's not my favorite nickname, but this is what I got stuck with here in Santa Cruz. And he said, Bandit. He goes, you're friends with those wingsuit guys, right? JT Holmes, you're friends with that guy. I said, yeah. He goes, well, what? I want to make a wingsuit, and I want to take off on a left at Jaws into the wind, and I want to fly in the barrel. And he was dead serious. And I'm looking at him, I'm like thinking about the physics involved. I'm like, I don't know, man, it's probably not going to work. But that's Anthony. Right?
So
He's like, yeah, I want to fly in the barrel, man. I want to take off on a wingsuit and fly in the barrel. I'm like,
so
if anybody's going to do it, you are the guy that's going to do it.
I'll trade you Anthony's stories. So the night he comes over, we end up having a glass of wine or two. And he said he's got one of these ideas. He goes, here's what we're going to do. Dolphins are highly trainable. I'm going to be the first guy to get towed into a big wave by a dolphin.
Right.
I'm like, all right. He goes, I've got it all figured out. I'm like, awesome. Where do you get the dolphin? He goes, I don't know.
Yeah,
okay.
Like, you say, think outside of the blocks. He blew the box up a long time ago.
How do you get the dolphin from where it is to where the wave is breaking? I don't know. I'm like, well, I think there's a lot of work we need to do on this one.
Yeah. But it's that type of thinking that I think, that it pushes the envelope in everything we do. Yeah. Somebody that he doesn't see any barriers.
Yeah, I love him.
His dreams are real. Even
Yeah.
if they're still a dream, it's still very real to him.
Yeah. He's very of Santa Cruz too.
Yeah.
So Jeff, is there anything else before we kick out of this wave?
Are we kicking out?
Well, I don't know. I mean, we don't have to.
Well, it's an honor being here. You're a big inspiration to an entrepreneur, and that Play Bigger book was incredible stuff. I mean, as you distilled down all your experience into something so concise that somebody with my attention span that can read and actually enjoy is amazing. And then apply that algorithm to what they're doing. Even though I wish I'd read it at the beginning of my business, it came down in the sort of the 8th inning, but we put a lot of it to work. And so I'm coming full circle, being able to be here on your show in that respect. And, I hope that some of what we said today resonates with somebody out there and who's listening. And
are you kidding? Absolutely.
Cool.
Well, you're an amazing inspiration. I mean, what a life. And the other thing I'd like to tell you is I'd like to talk about making a small investment.
Cool.
Yeah.
In Jeff Denholm or ATIRA?
Well, both.
Oh, cool.
So I'd like to do that. I think what you're doing really matters. And I think what I love, the reality is the number of entrepreneurs that would be 6 or 7 years into this thing and still be banging on it hard, working to make that category finally tip. Whew, there's a lot of people who would stand down in the face of that.
Yeah. I mean, look, it was like I've paddled the Molokai Channel now 4 times. I competed in that race 4 times. And that first,
so you go Molokai to Oahu.
32 miles. It was just this past Sunday. It's every year. And
you just do it?
No, the injuries have kept me out of it, and I'm focused on ATIRA. I don't have the time to train enough to get across that channel again with one arm. But
you've done it.
I mean, that's a metaphor.
How many times?
4 times.
4 times.
Yeah. In the first year, the glue failed, and so I had to paddle 19 miles with one arm, and it was just, I think,
Wait a minute. You paddled 19 miles in the open ocean with one fucking arm?
Yeah. Instead of, ordinarily I'd have the prosthesis working for me to a certain extent. It came off, and talk about burger. My arm was so burgered from slipping and chafing because I was still using it, trying to use it, and it was flopping, and the carbon fiber was just tearing at my skin at the end of the race.
Of course, it's salt water.
I'm on my knees at the finish line, like after 8 hours of paddling in 90-degree weather across this channel. And, I relate ATIRA to that. I'm I'm looking at Oahu, and I'm going to get there. I told the guy on the boat when my arm failed, and I was dying, and 25 miles into this 32-mile race. And Tim Davis, the head photographer for Patagonia, has been on every race with me. He's a hilarious guy, one of my best buddies at Patagonia. He is the enviable job of flying around the world and shooting athletes, and he's an athlete himself. And I said, dude, there's only 2 ways I'm getting off this board, and it's either in a body bag or at the finish line. And that's how I feel about ATIRA. Is either the only way I'm on the front of the train, we're going downhill now. And, so it's either we're going to just smash into a wall, or we're going to come sliding into Happyville and win the race, that's what I'm visualizing. We're there. Just got to keep executing. We'll be fine.
You said an interesting word. That's what I'm visualizing.
Yeah.
How important is visualization?
Huge for everything I do, especially I visualize myself doing things athletically with 2 arms. And I ride a trainer in my house and do breath holding exercises with my heart rate up. And when I'm riding that bike, I'm visualizing, I literally force myself to visualize paddling in to big waves or surfing. I'm visualizing things over and over and over and over in my head when I'm doing this cardio workouts. And so visualizing, I think any really a lot of action sports, any athlete would say that to you, that there's a lot of success comes from being able to project themselves theoretically in their own mind into these circumstances and succeeding at them, so that when they do happen, you're almost on autopilot. I mean, if I overthink an athletic moment, a lot of times you're going to fail. You have a split second to succeed at it. And so you're going on this intuition that's developed through visualization and practice, that's not necessarily in the moment of doing something, but comes beforehand. And
And so you really believe that seeing it in your mind multiple times, many times before actually
dreaming it. Yeah. Like, or visualizing it, like visualizing yourself to be greater than you actually are. You know?
Yeah, I love it. And hey, before we wrap, do you have an opinion? I know you're trained in martial arts and you're a pretty tough guy. You can handle yourself, and I know you're a bit of a fight fan. Do you have a take on Mayweather McGregor?
You know, the humility thing. Look, I have a real hard time with. I know McGregor's whole deal is marketing and branding, but both of them. Mayweather's yapping at his press conference about money. It's all about money, and I know he comes from the ghetto and he's made his own thing. They're totally different, two different animals than I've ever been or ever will be. So I'm having a hard time buying into the whole thing because of their bullshit egos. But I tend to think that in a boxing ring, Mayweather has an advantage, and unless McGregor gets lucky with a haymaker or something, that Mayweather is going to pick him apart on points. He's going to use the ring. He's going to dance around him, and he's going to win on points. I don't think he's going to knock McGregor out. I think he's a tough bastard. He's got a steel jaw, and I do think there's a chance that McGregor, could connect on Mayweather and knock him out because he can certainly throw a punch. But I think Mayweather has got the advantage in a boxing ring as a boxer in that many rounds. The tactical science behind boxing is deep, and McGregor doesn't have that. And so he's not gonna learn it in 1 year either. Mayweather's been doing it his whole life. And so I think Mayweather's got the advantage. And outside of a fluky knockout, I think Mayweather's going to win on points. It's going to,
That's my prediction too. The guy who's 49-0 beats the guy who's 0-0.
Yeah.
The one sort of thing I wonder about, well, actually there's two. One is McGregor's a lefty who moves in very non-traditional ways, even for a mixed martial artist.
Yeah.
And so, boxers get trained in the boxing training, to your point, is very, very deep, but it's also inside its own box.
Yeah.
And so if you look at the business world by way of example, often the entrepreneurs that transform something just like you don't come from within the industry. So there's a bit of me that goes, I wonder if a really unorthodox southpaw who moves in non-boxing traditional ways. That said, I think Mayweather wins the fight. The one other thing I'd say is that Connor's probably already in his head. And Connor beat Aldo in the UFC partially because Aldo came out like a fucking maniac and wanted to pound him because of all the shit he said to him. Mm-hmm. And he got knocked out in 13 seconds. So I just wonder, will it be possible for McGregor to get Mayweather to fight emotionally?
I don't know. Did you see the first press conference? I thought Mayweather won the battle of the banter.
He did, but then did you see what happened in Toronto?
No.
Connor crushed him.
Okay, so he did his homework.
So, yeah. And actually, I was very impressed with Mayweather's talking game because, Connor, I think, is the best since Ali. So I thought Mayweather was really –
Do you think that's all – do you think I know Connor – one thing I like his message is, like, he says to the average guy, work hard, be committed, be passionate, work hard. This is all just work. I'm not gifted. This has been hard work. My gift is tenacity and commitment. So I love that. But I mean, there's all this other stuff around. I guess maybe it's just a show. Maybe he's just that he gets the marketing game and he's playing it up.
Yeah, I get.
Maybe if I had dinner with him, he'd be a real humble guy and listen to something I had to say. I don't know.
That part I don't know.
Yeah, he
might not be over himself. I have no idea. Yeah. But I get as a marketing guy, I appreciate the show.
Yeah, he's good.
He's playing a character.
Yeah. And unfortunately, those UFC guys get screwed. They're not making enough money to do what they do. They're not. I mean, look at the boxers. They're making millions. Mayweather's making millions and millions of dollars. These UFC guys are committing their whole lives to this sport. They're getting thrashed. They have a very short lifespan, and they're not making any money.
These guys, the entry guys get 10 to show and 10 to win. 10 grand to show up.
Such a BS. I mean, they need to go on strike or something. Who controls that whole thing?
Well, there's no fighters union.
No, right.
So they're just on their own or with their agents, right?
Right.
There's no such thing like it's not like the NFL, the NBA, or
who's the highest paid? McGregor probably.
Now for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Before that, it would have been Rhonda, I would imagine.
Mm-hmm.
And I think John Jones, who just recently fought,
Jones, yeah.
you know, but nobody's making McGregor money. I
Jones
wouldn't
won.
think.
Yeah.
Yeah. Jones beat Daniel Cormier. Yeah.
Cormier
And
scored it over the hill here.
yeah.
And,
do you know him?
I know, but I know Rockhold, and they're buddies.
Rockhold is going to fight again soon. He
Yep.
just signed it. I forget the guy's fighting. It's not a big name. Looks like it's a bit of a comeback fight maybe for Luke.
Yep.
Do you train with him?
No, but I just know him through the local boys that grew up here. I'm friends with guys that grew up with him. And I'm friends with Garth Taylor, who was one of his influences, who I think is, talk about incredibly humble, amazing athletes.
He's
Garth
a local
Taylor's
legend, yeah.
And nobody even knows. I mean, yeah, he's just, I would not, if it was put this way, if I'm vastly successful, I'm going to make him head of security, even if I don't need him just to hang out with the guy. Even if I don't need security, I want Taylor by my side.
Yeah, he's going to take care of business, isn't he?
Oh, my God.
Yeah. Actually, there's a lot of great fighters in Santa Cruz, or that have come through Santa Cruz, right?
Yep, a lot of great athletes. This town's amazing in that respect. It's ground zero.
It's really inspiring.
Yep.
Birthplace of CrossFit.
Skateboarding.
Yeah. Novak, right?
Yep. World-class kiteboarding.
Yeah.
World-class big wave riders, the whole Mavericks movement, skiers.
Sailors.
Scott Schmidt from Aptos. Cody Townsend, one of the best modern-day skiers.
Incredible talent, right?
Santa Cruz boy. The list goes on and on. Zach Wormhout, talk about humility. That kid, I call him the Worminator. His nickname's Wormy, Wormhout, and I call him the Worminator.
I like the Worminator.
He's just a savage in the water.
And did you make it to the paddle out for Jack? Were you around?
I did.
You did.
Yep. When I paddled my paddleboard from Capitola down, it was pretty cool to see.
Yeah.
Amazing. Jeremy was here. Jones,
was he?
Jones was here. Yeah.
How cool.
O'Neill, he was a big O'Neill athlete, and they funded those.
Oh,
movies.
that's right.
They put up a lot of money for those that trilogy of movies, Deeper, Further, Higher. And he had his own little clothing line with them. All the outerwear.
Yeah. I forgot that. That's so cool.
He's been with O'Neill for a long time. He's still with him. Yeah, so he loved Jack. And Jeremy's one of those guys that, really is reverent to stories, evolutionary stories like O'Neill would start with a guy like Jack, And, he's a guy who was a trendsetter, an amazing man,
Did you know him at all, Jeff?
No, I met him a bunch of times, but that was all.
Yeah.
I wasn't buddy with him.
Right.
I met his son. His son used to work out at Rocky's.
Yeah.
Rocky's gym.
Pat, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
And he ran the boat, so we talked boat stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. You could tell a few fish stories, can't you?
Too many.
All right, Jeff.
Thanks, man.
You're amazing. You're a legendary human being, brother.
I'm really being a loser, I guess. Thanks, Chris.
Thank you.
Okay.
There he is, Jeff Denholm. Wow, am I ever glad we were able to share that dialogue with you today. And if you know somebody who you think would be stoked to hear Jeff's story, I'd ask you to share it with them right now. Sacramento, October 21st and 22nd, One Life Fully Lives live 2-day conference, Dream, Plan, and Live Your Best Life. Come out and check us out. For more information, go to onelifefullylive.org. I'm on tour with our friends at NetSuite, September 20th in Denver, September 26th in Toronto, September 27th in beautiful New York, and November 9th in the red hot Miami. Jason Maynard, the thought leader from the tech industry and executive from NetSuite, will be there. We'll have different executives and thought leaders in different cities, and I'll be doing a talk on category design, signing books, and having a very, very good time. Please come out and see us. To request your invite, email blackhole@legendsandlosers.com. Also like you to check out legendsandlosers.com. We've got a legendary website. Come and join us and subscribe. That way you'll never miss any of our losery. We would like to thank HarperCollins, Instant Classic Play Bigger, How Pirates, Dreamers, and Innovators Create and Dominate Markets. Equity Directory, connecting startups to the talent and resources they need to build a legendary business. OneLifeFullyLive.org. Dream, plan, and live your best life. And come out and see us in Sacramento. NetSuite, #1 in cloud ERP at netsuite.com. Come and see us on the road, the Next Ready Business Tour. ATIRA Systems, maker of strong water firefighting technology, saving structures, firefighters, and the planet at atirasystems.com. Pursuingresults.com. Hey, they produce legendary podcasts. They might produce yours, and they even produce ours. The Ziegler Show, speaking of legendary podcasts, this podcast will inspire your true performance with the amazing host, none other than Kevin Miller. TheMarketingJournal.org, what legendary marketing people read, check it out. And Doctors Without Borders, making a difference in some of the most challenging places in our world. Send us some money, and we'll make that difference for a much longer period of time. This oddcast is the sole property of the Legends and Losers Oddcast Network, and we'd love it if you shared the shit out of it. All rights do remain disturbed. We must inform you, this oddcast is produced in a studio that does contain nuts. Legends and Losers may also contain forward-looking statements, backward-looking statements, and present moment-looking statements, and completely asinine statements. Don't forget that actual results may differ materially. Listen to Prince. Support your local firefighters. Don't forget, Legends and Losers is never tested on GMOs. Don't be lame. Get out of the passing lane. Thank you, Dandy Candy. We love you. Be nice to your sister. Teach entrepreneurship. Visit Canada. And hey, Colin, this oddcast really ties the room together, doesn't it? Today, our deepest apologies go out to Nick Halstead, CEO of Cognitive Logic. Sorry, Nikki, we just ran out of time for you. Thanks for joining us today, friends, and we'll look forward to seeing you again soon on another episode of Legends and Losers.